Looking for a casual baseball podcast to listen to? Well, Baseball with the Bard, presented by Clovercrest Media, has just what you're looking for. Tyler Bard and Noah Cross cover a wide range of happenings in the MLB and then dive into a deep focus on the Red Sox and Yankees. Join us every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for your weekly dose of Baseball with the Bard.
What's going on, everyone? This is the Posting Up podcast through Clovercrest Media here. I'm joined by Sean Scanlon and Kingsley. How we doing, guys?
Doing good, brother. How about you?
I'm doing good. Sorry I missed you guys on Saturday. It ran a great show, though. I checked it out. It was awesome. So we will get right into it. Isaiah, I know you've got a lot to say on this topic, so without further ado, I'll let you start off. Knicks have brought in Derrick Rose. They traded Dennis Smith Jr. and a second-round pick to the Pistons. In return, Rose is averaging 14 points, 4 assists off the bench in Detroit. Isaiah, what do you make of this move for the Knicks, and do you think it does anything for them?
I think it does something for us if you think the Knicks are trying to make a playoff push and actually try to win some playoff games. I think you bring in somebody like Derrick Rose, who's a savvy vet who knows how to handle the game in big situations. I think, he's someone that you could use down the stretch. But as far as the development as the rest of the team, I don't know where that goes. I'm just hoping that with Rose coming in, it doesn't affect the development of players like Quickly, who, again, his minutes will probably now be cut now because Derrick Rose is coming in, and there's only so many minutes that can go around. But like I said, you don't want to play like Quickly to slow down or stunt his development any type of way if he's the future. So if the Knicks could find a good balance, then I think this could work out. But if they can't, this becomes a problem real fast.
Sean, what do you think about the situation here?
Yeah, I think it's a good move, especially if the Knicks want to, make that playoff run, like Isaiah was saying. And I don't think it's anything against Derrick Rose, the player. I think what they gave up for him was pretty fair. They gave up Dennis Smith in the second round pick, and obviously Dennis Smith wasn't playing. Obviously he's playing in the G League now, or he was playing in the G League before he got traded. And I think that D Rose will play good, especially given more opportunity and more minutes, and under his former head coach and Tom Thibodeau. But I don't think this is I don't think this is exactly what the Knicks needed. I think they really needed a shooter, a spot up shooter, because I don't think Reggie Bullock and Alec Burks are getting it done. And I think they really struggle offensively. Obviously they're a great defensive team, but I think a spot up shooter really would have helped this team out. And I don't think, Derrick Rose is the best fit, even though, I don't have anything against the player. I think he's going to play well in New York, but I just don't think this is exactly, what they needed to do at the trade deadline.
Right. And when I first saw this move, I don't know, Isaiah, you might remember back when the Knicks first acquired Derrick Rose, however many years ago that was, he was at his introductory press conference and he said, I can't, this isn't a direct quote, but he was like, they say it's us and the Warriors who are the super teams. And that just made me laugh. But I think, like Sean said, Derrick Rose certainly won't hurt the Knicks here, other than what Isaiah was saying with the development of the young talent on this team. Obviously, you hope they are trying to make the playoffs with a move like this. Sean, I got a quick question for you regarding Derrick Rose. If you think this, do you think this was the best fit for Derrick Rose, and if not, who else should have pushed harder to acquire a player like Derrick Rose to come off their bench?
I actually do think it's a good fit. Because I mentioned obviously Tom Thibodeau, he's coached them in Chicago and in Minnesota, and they obviously have a great relationship. So I think he'll get the minutes here. Obviously, he was coming off the bench in Detroit. I think he was a little pissed off about that because I mean he's obviously not the D Rose MVP that we saw in 2012, but you know he's still a very good player. He can give you a lot of solid production, especially offensively. So I think this is a pretty good fit, and I think that Derrick Rose will be happy that he's in New York.
Isaiah, any teams you think should have pushed harder for Rose, or do you think he was just kind of going to stay in Detroit if the Knicks didn't pull the trigger?
I thought the Clippers were actually going to make a serious push for him. I thought the Clippers could have used a more point guard. I guess I don't even know how to put it. More point guardish type player at the point guard position. More like someone who I feel like could facilitate the offense way better than what they have now. And again, who could get to the line. And because, as a vet, even though he is still, like Sean said, he's not the all-star he was, he could still get those fouls, getting to the line, similar to the all-star players. So I thought he would have been a good addition there. And again, also he would have helped out defensively, but they didn't push for him. They obviously had no need for him, I guess. They felt they were fine where they were.
I agree with that, actually. I was going to say, I thought the Clippers should have made a bigger push for him. I think that he would fit great there, especially, whether it be coming in relief of Patrick Beverley, getting more minutes than him, but off the bench in a kind of a 6-man role with Lou Williams there, or even as a starter. I think Derrick Rose would have fit quite well into the Clippers system. But with that being said, we'll get to our first game break after our message from Clovercrest Media.
Clovercrest Media Group presents a CMG podcast, Keys to the City.
Keys to the city, baby. When you see us, so you know.
Crossed up by Kobe, little floater to Shaq, and then Shaq goes like this, and the rest is history. Pay attention. Don't tell me what to do, devil woman. Speaking of those Lakers, hold on. But I didn't make my. I said Denver's gonna win. Yeah, you did. You said that. There's no other show like that. Clovercrest is doing great things right now.
Streaming everywhere.
Keys to the City. Check it out on Clovercrest Media. But without further ado, we'll get into our game break here. Last episode, the guys did a kind of a special version of this. We're going to do that again here today. We'll start with Sean, go to Isaiah, and then finish with myself. Gentlemen, give me some games, whether it be tonight, tomorrow night, or even Friday or something like that, just throughout the week that you're looking forward to watching.
Yeah, the biggest game that I have my eye on is Friday night at 9 p.m. It's the Bucks versus the Jazz. I mean, this obviously two of the better teams in each conference. The Jazz we've seen is, they're off to a really hot start to start the season. Offensively, they've been great, and then obviously defensively, they picked it up. I think I said it last episode, but having Bogdanovich back, I think has been huge for them. They didn't have him in the playoffs, and Mike Conley's hurt right now. But once they get him back, he's been having one of the better years of his career, even including his great years in Memphis. So yeah, Jason, mentioned that. But yeah, Jazz Celtics would be a good one too. But and then you get the Bucks side of it. Obviously Giannis, the 2-time reigning MVP. Chris Middleton coming off a really great game last night. Drew Holiday wasn't playing, and he had a career high in assists. So I think in that point guard role, if Drew Holiday is going to miss an extended period of time, I think he could fill in. And Middleton's been great this year. So that's one matchup of two of the better teams in both the Eastern and Western Conference that I'm really looking forward to on Friday night.
Isaiah, what do you got?
Probably not necessarily a big game. I'm more interested in this Knicks Heat matchup tonight. Thought they played them really well the other night, only losing by, I believe, 6 points, I believe it was the other night. The Heat actually got their man back. They had Jimmy Butler, so I was thinking the Knicks were going to lose by a lot more, but they played them well. So I'm interested to see with the addition of Derrick Rose, will they continue to be one of the top defensive teams in the league, and will Derrick Rose be able to help them add some scoring, which they desperately, like Sean mentioned before, desperately need.
Right, that's a good point. Jace read my mind. I'm going with the Celtics and the Jazz tonight on TNT. I think that's a great matchup. Obviously, the Jazz have been doing their thing. I believe they're either 19-5 or 19-6. They're one game away from being 15 games over 500. I mean, it's an incredible start for the Jazz. And then obviously we've mentioned in the past the Celtics and the development this season thus far of Jaylen Brown. Obviously, Jason Tatum's going to do his thing. Kevin Walker hasn't been as much of a factor, but you'd like to see if he can kind of step up in a bigger game such as this one. Right, and Jace is right. The Gobert needs to dominate for the Jazz to win. And 2 losses the Celtics have to the 76ers. Joel Embiid has gone absolutely off because the Celtics don't have that big man defensively or offensively to do anything against a big man. So definitely look for Gobert to do a bit more offensively than he usually does due to the Celtics' lack of size. That's a good point, Chase. So with that being said, we'll get into our second topic of the day, and something we haven't really talked a lot about on this show so far this season is rookies. I kind of just want to go around the circle here, and I want everyone to talk about their favorite rookie this season so far, whether it be how they've played, the potential they've shown, and who do you guys think maybe has the brightest future out of all these rookies, and who do you like the most? Sean, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think one of the obvious answers would be LaMelo Ball because of the way he's playing right now. But I'm going to go a little outside of the box. I'm going to go with Tyrese Halliburton of the Sacramento Kings. He was the 12th overall pick, and I think he's got a really good chance of being the steal of this draft. I just think super highly of him. He's a really good shooter who's he's shooting over 45% from the field on 5 attempts a game. So he's got that consistency shooting on a really bad Kings team, but he's also a great facilitator. He's dishing out 5.5 assists right now compared to only 1.5 turnovers. So he does it efficiently. The assist to turnover ratio is there. And then defensively, he's got the super long arms. He's deflecting passes all over the place. I think he has 1.2 steals per game right now. So I think that on a really crappy Kings team, he's one of the very lone bright spots. And he's only 20 years old, so he's only going to get better, I think, especially if Sacramento gets some more talent around him. But I think Tyrese Halliburton, I think he's a sleeper for the Rookie of the Year award right now, and I think that he's going to have a really bright future in Sacramento. But who would be your pick, Zay?
It's not even a question.
Yeah.
Quick. Honestly, I thought I'd have the same excitement I have with Quickly. I thought I'd have it for Toppin, but Quickly's actually been impressive. He wasn't picked in top 10, wasn't even picked in the top 20. A lot of people thought the Knicks made a horrible pick by picking him and just thinking that the Knicks were just picking, guys from Kentucky and whatnot. But he's been playing well. He's been scoring, and he's been scoring in big moments, not just, times where, it's garbage time and they got the guys in the fourth quarter playing. He's playing in big moments in the game. He scored one night, I believe he had the back-to-back 30 last week in the fourth quarter. This kid is playing out of his mind right now. For him to not even be thought of or be the MVP rookie of the year, I don't understand how that's possible. This kid's amazing.
Right, and that's been one of the kind of surprising rookies so far is Emmanuel Quickley, but someone I wanted to go over is Cole Anthony of the Orlando Magic. He was he slid farther down the draft board than I expected him to. He slipped to 15. I think he might be actually the steal of this draft. He's shown some clutch genes. He's hit a couple clutch shots. One absolutely amazing shot. I can't remember who it was against. But it was a game-winning three-pointer fading away in the corner, and it was a splat. I mean, it was an absolute beautiful shot. My cousin, who's a Magic fan, absolutely loves Cole Anthony. I think he's going to do great things for them. I think he'll definitely be a point guard of the future if a guy like Markelle Fultz can't fully recover and be even the same. I'm not even going to get into Markelle Fultz because that dude's injury history is just a mess, and I feel so bad for him. But someone I wanted to get your guys' opinion on, someone who's been kind of disappointing so far, at least judging by how he was supposed to be played, is that's the number 1 overall pick. Anthony Edwards has looked kind of shaky so far. Sean, what do you think is wrong with Anthony Edwards?
I just think that he's a really bad shooter, at least right now, and he continues to take a lot of attempts from the 3-point line. So I think his biggest strength is driving to the rack. Obviously, he's a big, strong kid. I think and he's very physical. So and he's pretty good off the dribble. So I think he's got to stick to that more. It's kind of like my favorite player is Russell Westbrook, and I kind of always wish that he stopped taking so many 3-pointers just because he's so much more efficient when he drives to the rack. So I kind of think the same thing of Anthony Edwards. And he is still really young, so I think that he is going to develop. Obviously, he's a great athlete, and he could do it on the defensive side too. But I just think that he has to limit his shot attempts from the 3-point line. He's got other good shooters on his team like D'Lo, and also he's got good facilitators that can get him the ball. So I think if he just cuts those shot attempts down, focuses on being more efficient, I think that he'll be a lot better.
And speaking of disappointing rookies, Isaiah, what's up with Obi Toppin?
I wouldn't say disappointing. I would say he's starting to come along. But again, this is a season where I'm trying not to hold it against rookies. There was no, summer camp with a rookie. There was no rookie summer camp. There was no off season, no training camp. There was none of that. Everything was shortened. And then you mentioned on top of that, he had a hamstring injury that sidelined him for the beginning of the year, which are very tricky injuries to come back from. So I think it's going to take some time. Obviously, he's in a really tough position on the Knicks where that position is very crowded. So getting play time is very limited also. So he's coming along. As soon as play time starts to open up, I think he'll get better. But right now, like I said, it's not the same excitement as quickly. It's definitely not.
Right. Maybe you'd like to see Toppin get a little more playing time. But like you said, coming off of that injury is not going to be so easy. And he definitely has time, although he's a little older than most rookies. But he's still young, nevertheless. With that being said, we'll get into our second game break just after this message from Clovercrest.
Welcome to Ivy League Murders. On this podcast, we focus on cases affiliated with the Ivy League, exploring the darker side of higher education. What happens when genius becomes evil? My name is Sarah Alcorn. I'm a Harvard graduate, and I've been a private investigator since 1999. Join me and longtime crime diva Laura McDonald for Ivy League Murders.
As you see, we just don't do sports. We do tons of other things that are interesting here on Clovercrest. So check that podcast out on Clovercrest Media. Starting off our game break here, I'll just quickly get through this first one. Malik Beasley was sentenced to 120 days. I believe Sean filled me in before the show. It's going to be house arrest now for his September arrest. So there's not much to cover on that one.
Look, when you're rich and it's a house arrest, it's vacation.
Right, exactly. Something more interesting I want to get a little deeper in than just reading over it. Steve Kerr has been criticized lately about not putting Curry in crunch time or giving him less fourth quarter minutes than the fans think he deserves. He says he's concerned more with Curry's longevity other than chasing wins. Isaiah, I see you making that face now, so I'll go to you first. What do you think about this?
I've never been a big fan of Steve Kerr. I believe he was handed Mark Jackson's team, and he won a championship with it. So for me, I just think it's an excuse for why he's just not really a great coach. Things have gotten difficult without Klay Thompson. I understand that, but good coaches find ways around that and find ways to win. And right now, he's just not doing that for that team. That team has not been the same since they've lost all three superstars. And now that they have two back, they still don't look the same. So I'm just, like I said, I've never been a fan of Kerr. I don't think he's a really good coach, and I think it's really starting to show now.
Right, and we had talked about a few weeks ago if Klay Thompson truly was the missing piece, but then you think more of like what Isaiah said, Kerr maybe not be all that as a head coach in this league. Sean, what do you make of this situation? Do you think Kerr should be criticized for his coaching, or do you think he has a point in saying he's worried more about Curry's longevity?
I think it is fair to criticize him, and I do agree with Isaiah. I just think that he's your best player in the team, and you're gonna limit his minutes in the fourth quarter. You're trying to go out and win games in the NBA. And look, if you give him a rest night, I understand that. If you're gonna hold him out completely out of the game, but especially these nights where he's getting hot. He dropped 57 in a loss the other night, so he's obviously the core. The strength of that team. The Warriors go as long as Steph Curry goes, pretty much. If he's doing good, the Warriors are doing good. So I just think to limit your best player, especially in crunch time when you could be winning some of these games, they could have won that Mavericks game the other night where he went off. So I just think it's not a good look for Steve Kerr. And they're still somewhat alive in this Western Conference playoff mix. So I don't get why you wouldn't want to win these games and get a chance at a higher seed and maybe even get into that maybe 4 seed, get a home playoff game. So I don't understand what Steve Kerr is doing with this. Sitting out your best player. And Steph Curry, I mean, he's been absolutely special this year. I'm not the biggest Steph Curry fan, but I can't deny his greatness just watching him this season. He's a fun player to watch. So holding that back from the fans, and on top of that, preventing wins, I don't think it's a good look for Steve Kerr.
Right, and I mean, you just said it, Sean. You can't deny his greatness. It's Stephen Curry we're talking about, one of the greatest shooters, most clutch shooters in NBA history, not only in the game today, but across the league's history. I hate to agree with the both of you, but I do. For the sake of argument, I'd like to sit here and tell you that Steve Kerr's a great head coach, but I just don't think that's the case. You're sitting a player and not winning games. I've never heard of a coach say he's more concerned with not win. Like, that's basically what he's saying. He's saying, I don't care about winning. And I never heard that out of a coach's mouth until this week. So I think that's
perks of being a Hall of Fame basketball coach, I guess, because
right.
I've seen coaches that have lost, who went to the Eastern Conference Finals and lost their jobs, and he's sitting there with a job. So whatever.
Right.
I'm not trying to play a race card in anything, but I'm just saying it's nice to be a NBA champion, I guess.
Yeah, no, there's definitely factors to think about when you think about coaches sticking around for too long, and you're wondering maybe if that'll be happening with Steve Kerr, but we'll find out years down the road. We'll see how the Warriors are performing, obviously holding out.
I just wanted to say, it's one thing with Eric Spoelstra, who had LeBron and had Wade and had Bosh, but then he found a way to get that team back to the championship without them and to continue to make them contend. To me, that's a good coach who had good players. But when you have good players and then you don't have them no more, or they're not the same no more, and you can't find ways to win, that's when I start to question. Eric Spoelstra found ways to win without the greatest player in the game.
And Andrew Wiggins isn't great, but he's no scrub. I mean, he's averaging 18, 19, 20 points a game. Kelly Oubre obviously hasn't been playing that great, but he's still not a scrub either.
He's been playing better as of late, though, too.
Right. And you have these pieces who, in place of Klay Thompson, you should be winning some more games than you are. So Steve Kerr definitely deserves to be under the fire he's under right now. Speaking of the Warriors, James Wiseman is going to be reevaluated when the Warriors come off of their road trip. There's no timetable for his return yet, although they don't think it'll be too long. And then the Cavaliers, Larry Nance Jr. will miss 4 to 6 weeks after finger surgery. So we'll get into our final topic of the day. I kind of wanted to do something fun here, so we'll go around the horn here, and we'll answer this question. You get to interview any player, current or former, doesn't, I hate to say this, but it doesn't matter if they're deceased or not. You can ask them 2 to 3 questions. That's it. That's the max, 3 questions. Why do you ask them the question? What questions do you ask them, and why? And why would you want to find this out about them? Sean, we'll start with you.
All right, for my interview, I'm going way back to the 60s, and I'm going to sit down with the great Wilt Chamberlain. So, a couple of questions I would ask him is, first, I would ask him if he thinks that would his game translate to the NBA today, which I think personally, I think he would dominate in today's NBA. One of the greatest scorers that the NBA has ever seen. And obviously back then there was only 8 teams, and they weren't the athletes that they are today. But I think that Wilt Chamberlain was a supreme athlete, just a tremendous rebounder. He's one of the best passing big men of all time, and just dominant on the defensive side of the ball too. So I think that, that would be the first question I would ask him. Second, I would ask him, how he was feeling on the night that he scored 100 points, and what it feels like to be in that zone where that absolutely no one can stop you. There's nothing that anyone could do to stop you. I would like to know his mindset of, what he was thinking that night when he scored 100, which is, obviously doesn't even seem possible, especially in today's NBA. And last but not least, I think the most pressing question, which doesn't really have to do with basketball, but he's claimed to have slept with over 20,000 women in his life. So I would have to ask him personally, in his opinion, who is the most attractive woman that he's ever slept with? Because he's got a lot to choose from. So that would be my final question to the great Wilt Distilled.
That's hilarious. I love that. Isaiah, who are you sitting down with? Are you talking about their escapade?
Actually, yeah, mine's gonna be a little less professional than Sean's. I'd probably sit down with Isaiah Thomas and ask him first off, where'd you get the amazing name that I'm? Then I'd probably ask him about the locker rooms. I'd want to know what the locker rooms are like back then. You know, you watched the documentary over the summer with with Jordan and all those great epic battles, and you saw one side. You wanted to know what the other side was like when they won. You know, I just wanted to know what it was like when they were winning, how those locker rooms were. You know, were they getting crazy? Were they wild? Did they have women in and out? You know, we saw the craziness that went on with the Bulls. I wanted to know what went on with that crazy Pistons team that everyone knows. The bad boys were just known for just not giving up. And so I would love to know the stories outside of the locker room for me. Those would be more of my questions. But not really a third question. I don't think after I get my second question, I don't think I think I'll be scared after that.
Oh man, those were great. Now I feel kind of bad about my questions. They're not as pressing as those. But it's going to be a current player here. My favorite player right now, and he's been my favorite player for a not very long time, just from the time he entered the league, is my guy Joel Embiid. First question I'd asked him is how he deals with the constant doubt and hate from the fans across the league. I know Philadelphia fans have been good to him, even though he sat out his first 2 seasons. They've never given up on him, and he's obviously returned that favor for them. But, there's been fans across the league, even analysts, who have constantly doubted his ability, his injury habits, not habits, but his injury history. Yeah, right. And he's kind of just this season especially come back and proven them wrong. So I'd like to hear his thoughts on if he even listens to any of those people, or if that affects him in any way. And then another question I had is, I've been to a few Sixers games in my days, and those fans are ruthless. So I'd want to know how playing in Philadelphia has affected his mental toughness, not only on the court, but off the court when he's training and stuff like that. Because you do wrong by those Philly fans, they'll get you. And I'm a Philly fan. I don't live down there. That's why I put the air quotes. And I hate the Eagles. Don't even ask me about that. But yeah, so I'd ask him about how being down there with those ruthless fans has affected his mental toughness. And obviously he's not a guy who's fazed by much. So I want to know how big of a part those fans play in that.
Crying down the tunnel when he lost.
Hey, that's different. That's different.
Not fazed by much, just losing. Hey. If he loses, he's gonna cry. But anything else, you can punch him in the face. It's fine. Losing.
That shot had no business going in. Don't even get me started on that.
It had a date with the bottom of the net. That's what it did.
Oh boy. Hey, well, that's a conversation for another day. You're not going to make me cry on this show today. If there's nothing else anyone has to say, though, I think that'll wrap up the show for today. Check us out on Clovercrest Media. We're live every Friday. My God, Friday. Saturday at 1 and Tuesday at 5. I was thinking 5. No, I don't got any other shows. Not yet, at least.
Show Friday.
Anyways, you can catch us live Tuesdays at 5, Saturdays at 1. Clovercrest Media. For Sean Scanlon, King's A, Lucas Bolduck, checking out for the Posting Up podcast.
Peace.